So welcome to this episode in the podcast series about wisdom, brought to you by Stuart Neville from Mindful Developments and Adam Wells from adamwells.com. Okay, so we're going to talk about wisdom. Start off with a really interesting question. Do you really want to be wise? Do I want to be wise? Do you want to be wise? And if so, what do we mean by that and why? Why is it important? It's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question, Stuart. Yes. Do you want to be wise? Never been asked that question before. Never even thought about answering that question before. So let's try.
It's a couple of challenges of the question, isn't there? Number one, what you mean by wisdom, and is it really something that you want? If you ask the question a bit differently, like I said, do you want your life to be rich? Do you want to learn from experience as you kind of go through life and grow older? If you suffer in a particular situation, you want to learn something from it and not suffer again and again and again in the same situation. If you put it like that, I think most people would say, yeah.
Yeah, most people want to avoid pain and the negative side of life.
But if you say, do you want to become wise? It's a tricky one because it's a yes, it might be a little bit arrogant. Yeah, I really want to be a wise. That's my goal in life. It's kind of a little bit counterintuitive, isn't it?
It makes me think, when you ask the question, I'm thinking clever people doing things the right way. Depending on my thinking is, how can I become wise? Is this wise thing for everybody else and not me? And does it come on different levels? And,
It is a question that's worth thinking about. If you kind of, right at the beginning of the process, you think, well, actually, this isn't like an ego trip, because wisdom is clearly not an identification, like I've become the great wise one. As an identity, it's something more subtle and nuanced. And I think, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but it's worth going with the question, because many hundreds of thousands of years, different cultures and traditions, there's often been a very concrete method to develop wisdom, become wise, from ancient Greece to Buddhism, or it's kind of implicit rather than explicit, but if you kind of train as a counselor or psychotherapist or coach, or you enter therapy for yourself, the kind of implication is that there's a kind of wisdom to be developed in unpacking and understanding something that we don't currently understand and that's problematic in our lives. Or in a tradition like Buddhism, it's really explicitly about, you meditate and practice mindfulness to develop wisdom and find in a particular way.
So how do we find the wisdom? Do you want to be wise? The answer is yes, I do want to be wise, and I do want to live a wise life. I'm thinking, what does a wise life bring me?
Yeah, why? Then why? Why do you want to do it? Is this because it sounds good or sounds intuitively feels right? When I ask myself the question, like, why would I want to become wiser, develop wisdom? I think I'm pretty clear that there are times when I haven't been wise, and I know what that lack of wisdom looks like. For example, I react unthinkingly, or I'm unnecessarily paranoid or defensive, or I cut myself off from part of myself. I kind of certain kind of things I avoid. There's ways I behave that are clearly immoral, or you can see in retrospect were kind of needless and caused needless suffering for myself and other people. Or that I've conformed. I've just gone along with the kind of status quo and conformed with the consensus view on something in a group, in an organization, or what have you. And I can see in retrospect that actually there's a problem with that it was a kind of common herd mentality or what have you. Wasn't wise at all. But I went along with it because everybody else was doing something, or think something, or had a certain attitude or value system. You kind of think of wisdom as not that type of aspect of who we are, unthinking, automatic, unreflective, and kind of behavior, and etc. And that's definitely something that's worth aspiring to develop.
I mean, I'm sensing that's when you're saying it's almost like you're going off kilter. You're not your true self. You're following the crowd. You're not being who you can be. Living a wise life is really, this is who I am, and this is what I believe in, and this is what I want. By living wisely, I can be me. I'm more myself. I have more awareness myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe we'll come on to this because these are other areas that we can think about in more depth. Yeah, I think there's something about being authentic or having some sort of integrity to knowing what matters to you and having the integrity to live accordingly is important. And being the richness, the quality of your life, whether you're living in a kind of rich way, and would be another kind of fruit of living wisely and learning from experience, as we said. Yeah. I also think it's something that's necessary, and the times we feel it's necessary, I think, is when things go wrong, and when we suffer, and when things happen we don't understand, that are confusing or bizarre in relationships or in behaviour, and our behaviour or other people's behaviour towards us. And it's often when a kind of a lack of wisdom, even if we don't know what that is yet, it's problematic that we can feel like, oh shit, there's something to be understood here. There's something I don't understand, something I don't get. There's something in me that isn't my attitude or my understanding or what I'm able to be conscious of, what I can feel, the kind of experiences that I would back away from as opposed to stay engaged with. Something in me needs to shift. I need to become wiser in a sense of, there's a problem that's arisen from not being wise. Like, that's a motivation.
Or recognition in the moment, I suppose, when we have these moments of truth in our life. We'll all go through major changes through our life, major events happening. And it's in those moments of truth, how do we respond to the really tough time? Maybe that's the point when actually this is where wisdom is called for, how to respond to a very difficult major life experience of some sort. And it's that learning. What am I meant to learn in this moment? It's having that awareness, self-awareness. I'm going to turn that suffering into wisdom and move forward from there, from that place. And that's the journey of life, to grow from these difficult moments of truth that we all experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think learning from experience is important. I don't think you can kind of state how important it is. And maybe that's the kind of, if you kind of take the question and think, yeah, I do want to become wiser. And what that means is I want to learn from the experience I have, and particularly when something needs to be understood, or, for me to remain happy and balanced and living life fully, then that's a really nice, simple way of answering the question. Yeah, I want to keep learning and understanding and growing. And
I think too that there's a sort of there's a higher intelligence at play here, because if we all chose to actively let's live our lives wisely, through that process we all grow, we develop, we mature through these difficult life experiences. Then ultimately, when we're much older in life, when we've matured, it's that elder wisdom that we have, which we pass to the next generations. Wisdom is part of how to keep society in place, keeps the world in place in that sense too. So I think there's a bigger purpose to living your life with wisdom. It actually maintains society in a positive way.
I think that's a really fantastic way of answering the question. So why do you want to become wiser? If the answer is yes, because the world needs more wisdom, society needs more wisdom, other people need role models, and we all need that. And we can, join in that in our own small way, the extent to which we can develop wisdom in our lives. We're part of that influence or heritage or ancestry or what have you of wisdom as it manifests in different people's lives. We join that stream and hopefully, have a positive influence on other people, just as we've been benefited from the wisdom of other people. And goodness, it's probably indisputable that more wisdom rather than less in the world is a good thing and helps us all. So I really like that as well. The thought I was going to just maybe wrap up, but other thoughts I had is, whether wisdom is something we learn or whether we learn from experience and then reconnect with the wisdom that's innate in human nature. Whether is it a matter of knowledge? Oh, well, I've been through this experience and now I know how that works. Is that what we mean by the term wisdom? Or is it more a matter of I've understood when I'm not wise, and therefore those kind of dynamics within me are kind of weakening, and I'm more able to just kind of be the wise human that's potential in all of us. Like it's something to discover rather than a personal characteristic.
I like it. I feel there is an innate, you said it, I think there is an innate wisdom in ourselves. And I think it's back to that example, is it the group? Do I subscribe to the power of the group or trust in myself? And I think it's answering that question of what would a wise person do? You're having to answer yourself that question. And I think that's the point. I think it's a blend of that innate wisdom that we have with the life experience. And that is then wisdom. It's the two in tandem.
Yeah, I think so. So I think we probably both would answer the question as yes. And I'm sure lots of people would as well. Most people probably would if they stopped and reflected on it quite naturally. So it is a worthwhile thing. It's a worthwhile character of human nature to be developed. I think if we're conscious of this is something that's worth doing and conscious that this is an important dimension of our lives and how we want to develop in our lives, I think it's helpful to make it conscious and maybe get over the slight awkwardness of not wanting to become egotistical about it, but nevertheless make it conscious as something that's worth pursuing.
And recognition that it's actually a natural phenomenon. It's totally natural. It's not something that's out there. It's within.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. to kind of approach this as something that's potential within all of us. It's a kind of potential quality, a catcher of human nature, as opposed to a kind of egotistical, skill that we have that others don't have, and therefore it gives us individually kind of some sort of, it's not like a vanity. It's actually discovering the potential of human nature. How I guess I think about it, but it's definitely something to value. Great.
So let's be wise.
Let's be wise. Yeah, let's endeavour.